You have spent your entire life believing that you must struggle, that you must worry, that you must prepare for the worst. But what if I told you that this fundamental assumption about reality is not only wrong, but is the very thing preventing everything from working out in your favor? The universe operates on principles that most people never discover because they are too busy fighting against the current of life instead of learning to flow with it. And when you truly understand that everything always works out, not as wishful thinking but as a cosmic law, your entire experience of being alive transforms from one of resistance to one of graceful allowance. Consider for a moment that every single thing that has ever happened to you, even the things you labeled as failures or disasters, actually moved you closer to where you needed to be, that every closed door led you to an open window, that every rejection redirected you toward acceptance, that every loss created space for something better to enter your life. And when you begin to see this pattern not as coincidence but as the fundamental organizing principle of existence itself, you stop fighting the river and start trusting the current. A man once told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had lost his job, his savings, and his marriage all in the same year, and he felt as though God had abandoned him. But Dr. Murphy replied that sometimes the universe must clear the old to make way for the new. And within 2 years, this same man had found not only a better career, but also a love deeper than he had ever known, and a sense of purpose that his previous life could never have provided. This is not exceptional. This is how life works when you stop interfering with its natural intelligence, when you stop assuming that your limited perspective can see the whole picture, when you start acting as if everything always works out, because everything always does work out for those who understand this truth. The reason most people struggle is not because life is inherently difficult, but because they approach each situation with the assumption that something might go wrong. And this assumption creates the very resistance that makes things appear to go wrong. When you wake up each morning expecting problems, you unconsciously look for evidence to support this expectation. You interpret neutral events as negative, you magnify small inconveniences into major obstacles. You attract people and circumstances that mirror your inner state of worry and doubt, and you create a self-fulfilling prophecy that seems to prove that life is indeed difficult. But when you begin each day with the absolute knowing that everything always works out, something remarkable happens. You start noticing solutions instead of problems, opportunities instead of obstacles, helpers instead of hindrance, synchronicities instead of coincidences, and what others call luck becomes your natural state of being. A woman approached Dr. Joseph Murphy and said she was afraid to leave her unhappy marriage because she worried about financial security, about being alone, about what people would think. And Dr. Murphy asked her a simple question: what would you do if you knew with absolute certainty that leaving would lead to greater happiness than you have ever known? She realized that her fear was not based on reality, but on the assumption that taking action toward her true desires would somehow lead to disaster. And when she finally acted as if everything would work out, it did work out, beyond her wildest dreams. This is not magic. This is the natural result of aligning your actions with the truth that the universe is always working in your favor, always conspiring to bring you exactly what you need for your highest good, always orchestrating circumstances that seem random but are actually perfectly designed to unfold your greatest potential. Most people spend their energy trying to control outcomes instead of controlling their inner state, trying to manipulate circumstances instead of aligning with the intelligence that creates circumstances, trying to force doors open instead of walking through the doors that open naturally when you approach them with confidence and trust. The universe responds not to your words or your actions, but to your inner conviction about how life works. And when your deepest belief is that everything always works out, you begin to move through the world in a way that makes everything work out. You take inspired action instead of anxious action. You speak from confidence instead of fear. You make decisions based on possibility instead of limitation. You attract collaborators instead of competitors. You find resources instead of obstacles. And what seemed impossible from a place of doubt becomes inevitable from a place of knowing. Consider the farmer who plants his seeds, not because he can guarantee the weather or control the soil conditions, but because he trusts in the process of growth. because he has seen again and again that when you plant with intention and tend with care, the harvest comes in its perfect time. And even when storms come or seasons are difficult, something good always emerges from the process of trusting life's intelligence. This same principle applies to every area of your existence. Your relationships flourish when you approach them, expecting love and understanding. Your career advances when you show up, expecting opportunities and recognition. Your health improves when you treat your body expecting vitality and strength. Your finances increase when you make decisions from abundance rather than scarcity. And your dreams manifest when you act as if their fulfillment is not a question of if, but when. The word always in the phrase, everything always works out, is not hyperbole. It is a recognition that even what appears to be failure or disappointment is actually part of a larger pattern of unfolding that you cannot see from your current vantage point. But that becomes clear when you look back over the trajectory of your life. Every person who has achieved anything meaningful can tell you stories of setbacks that turned out to be setups, of rejections that led to better opportunities, of losses that created space for gains they never could have imagined, of delays that allowed perfect timing to unfold, of obstacles that developed the strength and wisdom they needed for their ultimate success. This is not a consolation prize or a way to make sense of suffering. This is how the universe actually operates, like a master chess player who sees 50 moves ahead while you can only see the current position on the board, arranging circumstances with a precision and intelligence that becomes apparent only when you stop trying to be the master and start trusting the process. A young man once complained to Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been turned down for his dream job 3 times, and he was beginning to think he would never succeed in his chosen field. But Dr. Murphy suggested he act as if each rejection was perfectly designed to prepare him for something even better. And within 6 months, this same young man was offered a position that paid twice what his original dream job would have paid and provided opportunities for advancement that his first choice never could have offered. When you truly understand that everything always works out, you stop interpreting temporary setbacks as permanent defeats. You start seeing every experience as part of your preparation for greater success. You begin to trust that the timing of your life is perfect, even when it doesn't match your preferred timeline. And you recognize that what you thought you wanted was often just a stepping stone to what you actually needed. Acting as if everything always works out is not passive wishful thinking. It is an active stance that changes how you move through the world, how you interpret events, how you make decisions, and how you relate to other people. When you know with absolute certainty that things will work out, you take bigger risks because you understand that even apparent failures are just course corrections. You speak up in situations where others remain silent because you trust that your voice is needed. You invest in your dreams because you know that investment in what matters always pays dividends. You love more freely because you understand that an open heart attracts more love than a guarded one. You share your gifts generously because you know that giving creates receiving, and you approach challenges with curiosity rather than dread because you trust that every problem contains within it the seeds of its own solution. This shift from defensive living to offensive living, from trying to prevent bad things from happening to expecting good things to unfold, changes not only your experience but also your results, because the universe can only give you what you truly believe you are worthy to receive, and when you act as if everything always works out, you demonstrate that you believe you are worthy of having everything work out. A successful businesswoman once told Dr. Joseph Murphy that her greatest breakthrough came not when she learned better strategies or techniques, but when she stopped approaching each day, wondering what might go wrong, and started approaching each day, expecting to discover what was going right. And this single shift in perspective led to opportunities and connections that had been invisible to her when she was focused on protecting herself from imaginary threats rather than opening herself to actual possibilities. The evidence that everything always works out is all around you if you know how to look for it, not just in the lives of obviously successful people, but in the ordinary moments of every ordinary day, in the way problems resolve themselves when you stop pushing so hard, in the way solutions appear when you stop insisting they come from a particular source, in the way people show up to help when you stop believing you have to do everything alone, in the way money comes when you stop operating from scarcity, in the way love finds you when you stop chasing it, in the way peace emerges when you stop fighting for it. Every day contains dozens of small miracles that most people miss because they are looking for evidence of struggle instead of evidence of support, proof of limitation instead of proof of abundance, confirmation of their fears instead of validation of their hopes. But when you train yourself to notice how things are always working out, you begin to see that what you took for granted as luck or coincidence is actually the normal operation of a universe that is biased toward your success, designed for your flourishing, invested in your happiness, and committed to your growth. The traffic light changes just as you approach. The person ahead of you in line has exact change. The book you need falls off the shelf as you walk by. The phone call comes at precisely the right moment. The stranger offers exactly the information you were looking for. The opportunity presents itself just when you are ready to receive it. And these are not random events, but glimpses of the underlying intelligence that is always working to make everything work out for your highest good. When you start paying attention to these synchronicities instead of dismissing them, when you begin to see them as communications from a universe that is always on your side, when you recognize them as confirmation that everything is indeed always working out, your confidence grows, your trust deepens, your actions become more aligned, and your results improve dramatically. What you resist persists, but what you expect and allow flows to you with ease. And this is why acting as if everything always works out is not naive optimism, but practical wisdom, because it aligns you with the way the universe actually operates, rather than fighting against its natural laws. When you expect good things, you notice good things, and when you notice good things, you attract more good things, creating an upward spiral that lifts every area of your life to new levels of satisfaction and success. This does not mean that challenges never arise or that you never face difficulties, but it does mean that when challenges arise, you meet them with the confidence that they are not permanent obstacles, but temporary teachers, not punishments, but opportunities for growth, not evidence that life is against you, but proof that life is preparing you for something greater. A wise teacher once observed that the same wind that blows out a candle also fans a fire, and the difference is not in the wind, but in what the wind encounters. And when you act as if everything always works out, you become like a fire that uses every experience, pleasant or challenging, as fuel for your continued expansion, your deepening wisdom, your growing capacity to help others, and your increasing ability to create positive change in the world. The person who truly understands that everything always works out becomes unstoppable, not because they never face obstacles, but because they know that obstacles are just opportunities in disguise, not because they never feel fear, but because they act in spite of fear, not because they never fail, but because they see every failure as valuable feedback that brings them closer to success. The most profound shift occurs when you realize that acting as if everything always works out is not about trying to convince yourself of something that might not be true, but about aligning with something that is always true. Something that operates whether you acknowledge it or not, something that works more efficiently when you cooperate with it rather than resist it. Every spiritual tradition, every wisdom teaching, every great philosopher has pointed to this same fundamental truth, that there is an intelligence in life that is greater than your individual mind, more comprehensive than your personal perspective, more loving than your human understanding, and more committed to your well-being than you could possibly imagine. And when you learn to trust this intelligence by acting as if everything always works out, you discover that everything does always work out, not necessarily in the way you expected or according to your timeline, but always in the way that serves your highest good. This is not a promise that you will never experience loss or disappointment, but a recognition that even loss and disappointment serve a purpose in the larger pattern of your unfolding, that even pain can be productive when you trust that it is preparing you for joy, that even confusion can be valuable when you understand that it is clearing the way for clarity, that even endings can be beautiful when you know that every ending is also a beginning. A man who had experienced bankruptcy, divorce, and illness all within a few years said to Dr. Joseph Murphy that he could not understand why life seemed to be punishing him so severely, and Dr. Joseph Murphy replied that perhaps life was not punishing him, but preparing him, not tearing him down, but clearing him out, not working against him, but working for him in ways that would only become apparent when he looked back from a place of greater understanding. And indeed, within 5 years, this same man had built a more successful business, found a more compatible partner, and developed better health habits than he had ever maintained before his apparent troubles began. When you consistently act as if everything always works out, you begin to develop what could be called unshakable confidence. Not because you believe you will never face difficulties, but because you know you will always find a way through difficulties. Not because you think you will never make mistakes, but because you trust that mistakes are part of the learning process. Not because you assume you will never experience pain, but because you understand that pain is often the catalyst for growth. And not because you expect life to always be easy, but because you know that even when life is difficult, the difficulty is serving your ultimate well-being in ways you may not immediately understand. This confidence becomes the foundation for inspired action, for bold decisions, for generous love, for creative expression, for meaningful contribution, and for the kind of life that others look at with admiration and wonder, asking how you seem to have such luck, such timing, such opportunities, not realizing that what they call luck is actually the natural result of aligning with the truth that everything always works out, and then living from that truth with complete conviction. The universe is not neutral. It is biased in favor of growth, evolution, expansion, love, creativity, connection, and joy. And when you act as if everything always works out, you position yourself to receive the benefits of this cosmic bias, to become a conscious collaborator with the intelligence that is always working to bring forth the highest possibilities in every situation, and to experience life not as a struggle to be endured, but as an adventure to be enjoyed, not as a problem to be solved, but as a gift to be unwrapped, not as a test to be passed, but as a dance to be danced with grace. Confidence and absolute trust that no matter what steps you take, the music will always carry you exactly where you need to go. The practice of acting as if everything always works out becomes easier the more you do it, because each time you choose trust over worry, possibility over limitation, confidence over fear, you accumulate evidence that this approach works, and this evidence strengthens your ability to continue choosing the higher perspective even when circumstances seem to suggest otherwise. Like a muscle that grows stronger with exercise, your capacity to maintain faith in positive outcomes develops with practice until it becomes your natural default, your automatic response to any situation, your unshakable foundation for all decisions, and your reliable source of peace no matter what is happening around you. This does not mean you become naive or unrealistic. It means you become wise enough to recognize that your perspective shapes your experience, that your beliefs create your reality, that your expectations influence your results, and that your inner state determines your outer circumstances more than any external factor ever could. When you truly embody the knowing that everything always works out, you stop being at the mercy of circumstances and start being the master of your experience. Not because you control what happens, but because you control what you make what happens mean. And in that control lies all the power you need to create a life of satisfaction, success, and service that exceeds your current ability to imagine. The invitation is simple. Start acting as if everything always works out. Start expecting good things to happen. Start looking for evidence that life is on your side. Start trusting that every experience is preparing you for something better. Start believing that you are worthy of having everything work out in your favor. And watch as this simple shift in perspective transforms not only how you feel about your life, but how your life actually unfolds. Because when you align with the truth that everything always works out, everything always does work out, and what seemed like a leap of faith becomes a landing in certainty. What appeared to be naive optimism reveals itself as practical wisdom, and what looked like wishful thinking proves to be an accurate understanding of how the universe actually operates when you stop fighting it and start flowing with it.